I never thought a simple envelope could destroy everything I believed about my marriage. But when Lisa, my wife of 7 years, came home holding that sleek black invitation, I had no idea it would lead to the most shocking night of my life. She walked into the kitchen, her heels clicking against the tile, and placed the envelope on the counter. Her eyes were gleaming, a little too excited. "Vanessa got us into something exclusive," she said, sliding it toward me. I picked it up, flipping it over. The paper was thick, expensive, embossed in gold letters. A night of freedom and fun invitation only. There was no address, just a number and a cryptic line underneath. "Step into a world without limits." My stomach tightened. I never liked Vanessa. She was the kind of friend who pushed boundaries, always whispering bad ideas into Lisa's ear. "What kind of party is this?" I asked, setting the card down. Lisa shrugged, too casual. "Just a fun, high-end event. It's exclusive. That's why there's an invite system." "Where is it?" She hesitated just for a second. "They don't give the address up front. You get it the night of." Red flag. I exhaled, crossing my arms. "Lisa, this doesn't sound like a regular party. It sounds shady." She rolled her eyes. "Oh, come on, Adam. Not everything is a conspiracy. It's just a private event for professionals. You'd actually enjoy it if you stopped being so paranoid." Paranoid. That's what she called me when she didn't want to answer my questions. Something felt off. "I don't like this," I said firmly. "I don't want you going." Her expression hardened. "You don't get to decide that." That stung. It wasn't about control, it was about concern. "I just don't trust it, Lisa. Something isn't right." She huffed and grabbed the invitation. "Well, I'm going." And that was that. I watched her walk away, a pit forming in my stomach. I had a bad feeling, and no matter how much I tried to shake it, it only got worse. That night, she got ready like she was heading to a gala. Hair styled, perfume strong, wearing a dress I had never seen before. I sat on the couch, trying to push down the frustration building inside me. She glanced at me as she slipped on her heels. "Don't wait up." And with that, she was gone. I sat there, staring at the door, my thoughts racing. I could have let it go, but something told me I needed to follow her. And that was the moment I stepped into a nightmare I never saw coming. As soon as Lisa left, I grabbed my keys and followed. I wasn't acting out of jealousy, I was acting on instinct. Something about this whole thing felt off, and I needed to know what I was dealing with. She didn't take her car. Instead, a black luxury sedan pulled up to our house, and she slid into the back seat. Not a regular rideshare. Prearranged. Exclusive. I trailed behind, keeping my distance, my grip tightening on the steering wheel. The car weaved through the city and eventually took an unexpected turn. Out of downtown, away from restaurants, clubs, or anywhere I'd expect a party to be. Instead, we headed toward an unfamiliar industrial district. The streets grew quieter, the buildings darker, the air heavier. Then I saw it. A massive, windowless building stood at the end of a dimly lit street. No signs, no markings, just a set of double doors with a single red light above them. I parked half a block away, watching. Lisa stepped out of the car, adjusting her dress. Vanessa was already waiting by the entrance, dressed in something even flashier. Her signature smirk plastered across her face. They exchanged a few words before Lisa handed something to the doorman. My stomach dropped. Her phone. What kind of party required people to give up their phones before entering? I clenched my jaw, my heart pounding. Lisa and Vanessa disappeared inside, and the heavy doors shut behind them. I had a choice. I could turn around, go home, pretend I never saw any of this. Or I could go in and see for myself. I wasn't about to walk away. I got out of my car, straightened my jacket, and approached the entrance. The doorman, a stocky guy in a black suit, gave me a once-over. Invitation. Think fast. I pulled out my wallet and pretended to fumble. Vanessa said she left one for me. The guy barely reacted. Name? I hesitated. Adam. He checked a list. Not on here. I forced a laugh. Man, you know how it is. My wife drags me to these things, doesn't even tell me the details. Said to meet her inside. He studied me for a second too long, then, to my surprise, shrugged. Fine. Keep your phone in your pocket. No pictures. That was too easy. I stepped inside, and instantly, I knew this was no regular party. The lighting was low, the music thrummed through the air, and the atmosphere felt almost surreal. People were dressed to impress, but not in the way I expected. There was an air of secrecy, hushed conversations, private sections separated by velvet curtains. I scanned the room, searching for Lisa. Then I saw her, standing at the bar, with a man I didn't recognize. They were deep in conversation, her expression one I hadn't seen in a long time. Engaged, interested. The way she leaned in, the way he touched her arm lightly as he spoke. My stomach twisted into knots. I moved to get closer, my pulse hammering in my ears. But before I could reach her, someone stepped in my way. Vanessa. Her smirk was sharper than ever. Well, look who showed up. I clenched my fists. Get out of my way. She tilted her head. Careful, Adam. You might not like what you find. I ignored her and pushed past, my heart racing, because I had a sinking feeling she was right, and I wasn't prepared for what was coming next. I stayed at a distance, watching carefully. Lisa stood at the bar, and next to her was a man I didn't recognize. Tall, well-dressed, confident. He had the kind of effortless charm that made people lean in, listen closer, engage without even realizing it. And Lisa, my wife, was caught in his orbit. At first, I tried to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe just polite small talk. Maybe she was simply being friendly, responding out of habit. But as the seconds ticked by, I noticed the little things. The way she leaned in slightly when he spoke. The way she laughed. Not forced, not polite, but real. The way her eyes stayed locked on him, as if the rest of the room didn't exist. My grip tightened around the glass in my hand. This wasn't just casual conversation. I moved a little closer, careful to keep my posture relaxed, blending in with the crowd. The atmosphere of the place made it easy to go unnoticed. Soft lighting, low music, people in hushed conversations, engaged in their own exclusive worlds. Lisa swirled the drink in her glass, nodding along as the man spoke. Then, he said something. I couldn't hear what, but her reaction made my stomach tighten. She tilted her head slightly, her lips curving into a thoughtful smile. A moment of consideration. And then, she reached out, lightly touching his arm. I swallowed hard. It was subtle, barely noticeable to anyone who wasn't looking for it. But I was looking, and I saw everything. My mind raced. How long had this been going on? Was this the first time she had entertained something like this? Or had I just been blind to it before? The thought sent a bitter taste into my mouth. I wanted to march over there, put myself between them, force her to explain. But I held back. If I walked in now, she'd have an excuse. She'd turn it on me, say I was being jealous, paranoid, controlling. She was always good at spinning things in her favor. So I waited, watched, and then it happened. The man gestured toward one of the curtained-off sections of the room. It wasn't aggressive. It wasn't pushy. It was an invitation, a suggestion. Lisa hesitated, just for a second. Then she nodded. And just like that, she followed him. I felt the breath leave my lungs. I stepped forward instinctively, but stopped myself. I had two choices. I could storm over there, demand answers, make a scene. Or I could find out the truth without her knowing I was watching. I chose the second option. Slowly, I made my way toward the curtain, keeping my movements casual. The fabric wasn't completely closed, and through a small gap, I could see inside. There were small, private seating areas. Groups of people engaged in deep discussions, some laughing, others talking in hushed voices. It was a different kind of exclusivity, one that felt controlled, intentional. Lisa and the man sat across from each other, drinks in hand. He leaned forward slightly, speaking low. She nodded, listening intently. Not uncomfortable. Not unsure. She looked comfortable. Like this wasn't the first time she had done something like this. A cold realization settled over me. She had made a choice. And for the first time in my life, I had to face the truth. I didn't really know my wife at all. I stood frozen, my fists clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. Lisa had just disappeared behind one of those curtains with him. I needed to act, but I couldn't just barge in. That would end in disaster. I needed to be smart. Taking a deep breath, I moved toward the bar, keeping my eyes on the curtain section where Lisa had gone. I grabbed an untouched glass from the counter, pretending I belonged there. The bartender barely glanced at me. Good. That meant I wasn't drawing attention. The room felt different now, colder. The low music hummed beneath the sound of clinking glasses and quiet conversations. And then, out of nowhere, Vanessa appeared beside me. She didn't speak right away, just picked up her drink and sipped, watching me with those sharp, knowing eyes. "You should have stayed home, Adam," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. I turned my head slowly. "What's behind the curtain?" Her smirk deepened. "You already know." A sharp chill ran down my spine. I stared at her, my breathing steady but controlled. "Did you bring her here for this?" Vanessa exhaled dramatically, setting her glass down. "Lisa makes her own choices. You just don't know the real her." I gritted my teeth. "And you do." She leaned in slightly. "Better than you, apparently." I was done playing games. Without another word, I turned and moved toward the curtain section. My pulse hammered in my ears as I approached, my hands balled into fists at my sides. I pulled back the fabric just enough to see inside. And there she was, Lisa, sitting on a velvet couch across from the man. They weren't alone. There were others in the room, couples, pairs of strangers, people engaged in hushed conversations. Some laughed, some whispered, some simply observed. But my eyes were only on her. She hadn't seen me. She was too focused, listening to the man talk, nodding along, her posture relaxed in a way that made my stomach tighten. She looked comfortable here, like this wasn't her first time. I forced myself to stay put, to wait, to watch. And then, the moment that shattered everything. The man leaned in, speaking just low enough that I couldn't hear. Lisa smiled. Not a polite smile. Not an uncomfortable one. A real, genuine, pleased smile, like she had just gotten exactly what she wanted. She reached for a drink on the table, lifted it slightly as if in agreement. And then, she clinked her glass against his. A toast. To what? I didn't know. But in that instant, I realized the truth. Lisa wasn't hesitating. She wasn't second-guessing. She had already made her choice. And it wasn't me. I stood there, hidden just beyond the curtain, my breath steady but shallow. The weight in my chest grew heavier with every second that passed. Lisa wasn't confused. She wasn't hesitant. She was happy. I had spent years making excuses for the distance between us, convincing myself that it was work, stress, or just a phase. But now, standing here, watching her toast to something I wasn't a part of, I knew I had been blind. This wasn't some mistake. This was her choice. I took a slow step back, careful not to make a sound. My mind was racing, emotions clashing, anger, betrayal, humiliation. But one thing was clear. I needed to get out of there before I did something I'd regret. Vanessa was still at the bar when I returned to the main room. She saw me coming and smirked. "Did you find what you were looking for?" I ignored her and walked past, but she grabbed my arm. "Adam." I yanked it free. "Don't touch me." She laughed softly, shaking her head. "Oh, you poor man. You thought you were the exception." I stopped, just for a second. "What do you mean?" Vanessa sipped her drink, savoring the moment. "Lisa's been restless for years, Adam. You just never noticed." My fingers curled into a fist. She leaned in slightly. She wanted this. And deep down, you knew it. I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to stay calm. I wasn't going to let Vanessa bait me into a scene. Instead, I turned and walked away. I needed to leave. I needed space to think. I stepped outside into the cold night air, inhaling deeply, trying to ground myself. The world felt different now, like everything I thought I knew had been ripped away in an instant. Lisa was inside, laughing, celebrating, living, and I was out here, realizing that the life I had built was never what I thought it was. I pulled out my phone. My hands were shaking, but my mind was clearer than it had been in a long time. I opened our shared banking app. Then I opened our cloud account. And then I made a decision. Lisa had made her choice. Now it was time for me to make mine. I stood outside that building, my breath visible in the cold night air. I wasn't angry, not in the way people expect. I was clear-headed. Lisa had made her choice the moment she stepped inside. And now I was making mine. I tapped into our shared banking account, scrolling through recent transactions. She had withdrawn cash earlier that day, probably to cover whatever this exclusive event required. That told me everything I needed to know. She had planned for this. I scrolled further, checking our savings. Then, I did something I never thought I'd do. I moved every last dollar into my private account. If Lisa wanted a new life, she could start from zero. Next, I accessed our cloud storage. Photos, messages, shared files, all at my fingertips. I didn't have to search long to find what I was looking for. Screenshots of her conversations with Vanessa. Plans. Details about events like this. Mentions of other fun nights I'd never heard about. I copied everything. Evidence. Just in case she thought she could spin this around on me later. I took one last look at the building behind me, then slid into my car. My hands tightened on the steering wheel, my heart steady. I wasn't just leaving the party. I was leaving her, but not before making sure she'd feel it. I drove home, my mind already moving ahead. There was a lot to do. Lisa would come back expecting everything to be normal, expecting me to be asleep, none the wiser. She was in for a surprise. I packed quickly, grabbing essentials, my laptop, anything that mattered. Then I pulled up my email. A message to my lawyer. A message to Lisa. And one final message to her family, her coworkers, and every mutual friend we had. A short, simple note. Lisa made her choice tonight. I made mine. I wish her the best in her new life. But it won't include me. No drama. No accusations. Just the truth. Then I walked out of the house and never looked back. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't need to. Instead, I drove to a hotel across town, booked a room under my own name, and sat on the bed, staring at my phone. I knew it was only a matter of time before Lisa came home and realized what had happened. And sure enough, at 3:12 a.m., my phone started buzzing. Lisa. I let it ring. Then came the messages. Lisa. Where are you? Lisa. Adam. What's going on? Lisa. Why is the bank account empty? Then the panic set in. Lisa. What did you do? Lisa. I don't understand. Talk to me. Lisa. Adam, please, you're scaring me. Scaring her? I was the one who had spent the night realizing my entire marriage was built on a lie. I leaned back, exhaling slowly, and typed out a single response. Me, you made your choice, Lisa. I made mine. Good luck. I turned off my phone and closed my eyes. For the first time in years, I felt like I was finally in control. The next morning, I turned my phone back on. It immediately flooded with missed calls. Lisa, Vanessa, even her brother. I ignored them all, but one message caught my eye. From Lisa. It was longer than the others. Lisa. Adam, please. I don't know what's happening. I came home and you were gone. Everything was gone. The money, your things. I don't understand. I need to talk to you. Please don't do this. I stared at the screen. The sheer audacity of it. She had walked into that party. She had made a choice. And now she wanted to act like she didn't see it coming? I knew I had to respond. So I did. Me, Lisa, I saw everything. I was there. I watched you. I know the truth now. There's nothing left to talk about. Silence. For an hour. Then, Lisa, I can explain. I almost laughed. Explain? What was there to explain? Me, I don't want an explanation. I want a divorce. No response. Just the little read notification at the bottom of the screen. I could picture her face, her shock, her desperate scramble to figure out a way to spin this. But there was no coming back from this. Lisa had burned our marriage to the ground, and I was done standing in the ashes. The silence stretched on for hours. Lisa had read my message. She knew I wanted a divorce, but she hadn't responded. I wasn't surprised. She was probably panicking, trying to find a way to turn this around. She always had a way with words, always knew how to make herself the victim. But this time I had the truth on my side. I got out of bed, showered, and put on fresh clothes. Today wasn't just any day. Today was the day I took my life back. I drove straight to my lawyer's office, walking in as soon as they opened. I had already sent the initial email, but I wanted this done as soon as possible. The lawyer, an older man with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, skimmed over my request. "You want to file for divorce immediately?" "Yes," I said without hesitation. He nodded. "Irreconcilable differences?" I hesitated. That was the easy route, the clean route. But was I willing to let Lisa walk away unscathed? I leaned forward. "What are my options?" He set his pen down. "That depends. Do you have evidence of wrongdoing?" I pulled out my phone, opened the folder where I had saved everything from the cloud, screenshots, messages, even the details of the party Lisa had attended. I slid the phone across the desk. "I have plenty." The lawyer scrolled through the files, his expression unreadable. After a few minutes, he let out a slow breath. "This is substantial." He looked up at me. "You realize this could work in your favor, right? Financially, legally." "I don't care about revenge," I cut in. "I just want out." He studied me for a moment before nodding. "Then let's make sure you walk away with everything you deserve." We spent the next hour drafting the initial paperwork. By the time I left his office, my chest felt lighter. This was happening. It was real. Lisa was about to lose everything. I checked my phone as I stepped into the parking lot. Still no response from her. But when I opened my messages, I noticed something new. A voicemail. From Lisa. I hesitated. Did I even want to hear whatever excuse she had come up with? After a moment, I hit play. Her voice came through, shaky and desperate. "Adam, please just talk to me. I don't know what you think you saw, but it's not what it looks like. I was just talking, I swear. Vanessa invited me, and I didn't know what kind of party it was until I got there. I wasn't doing anything. You're overreacting. Please come home. Let's talk. Just give me a chance to explain." I clenched my jaw. Lies. Even now, after everything, she was still lying. Still trying to gaslight me into thinking I was the one making a mistake. I deleted the voicemail. Then, without a second thought, I blocked her number. I spent the rest of the day preparing, moving my remaining funds to a new account, canceling joint credit cards, locking down everything that had my name on it. Lisa would figure it out soon enough. And she did. Because by late afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. I answered, already knowing who it would be. "Adam." Lisa's voice came through, tight and furious. "What the hell did you do?" I stayed silent. "You drained the accounts? You locked me out? What is wrong with you?" I let out a slow breath. "I'm just making sure you don't take any more than you already have." She sputtered. "Are you kidding me? You can't just." "I can." I cut in. "And I did." Silence. Then a sharp exhale. "This is insane. You're acting crazy. You can't just." I laughed, shaking my head. "Lisa, let me make this clear. We're done. You made your choice. I made mine. I don't owe you anything." Her voice wavered. "So that's it? You're just walking away? Throwing away everything over a stupid misunderstanding?" I could almost hear the panic creeping into her voice. She knew she had lost control. I smiled to myself. "Yeah, Lisa, that's exactly what I'm doing." And then, before she could say another word, I hung up. Lisa tried calling again, and again, and again, but I didn't answer. I was done. By the time I got back to my hotel room, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Relief. Lisa had spent years making choices without thinking about me. Now I had finally made one for myself. And for the first time in my life, I was free.